Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. Coming to you live from an alligator's mouth. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We've got some fun Miami Grand Prix coverage to talk about, some post-race discussions and all. We've got some MSI. First 2 days have happened, so lots of good League of Legends has been played. We've got some Commander Magic the Gathering games. Justin, good to see you, everyone coming in to watch and listen. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. As he said, thank you for joining us. Looking forward to the episode. Got a lot to go over. I think it's like 11-some games, a great Miami Grand Prix. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Before we get there, Aaron, you want to start us off with your Rose, Thorn, and Seed there, sir?
Sure. So for my Rose this week, I decided last minute to hop back into the basketball league with my friends. So
Nice.
signed up. I picked to be on their team and everything, and I go to check it yesterday, and it was like, you're not on a team with any of the people that you were supposed to be. So I had to email the people. They got it all squared away before game time. Only 5 of us showed up, but we got the win. So that was fun. I was like unsure about playing and all, and went for it, and then it was a blast per usual. So I think it was a good call. So that is my Rose for this past week. My Thorn is that I am currently kind of sick. We were, over the weekend, Colleen and I were at a wedding. There were a couple of people there that were positive for COVID, but I do not have COVID, fortunately. So silver lining, however, yesterday I started feeling under the weather. So I took a test yesterday, took a test today. Both came back negative. But I think it's just a sinus infection or some sort of sinusitis type thing. So I feel a little off, not quite 100%, but I'm still kicking and have avoided Corona once again.
There you go. Well, you sound great to me. You're coming through crystal clear.
Yeah, so I want to preface, I think I should be good for the episode. You may hear a cough here or there. I'm going to try and mute myself
God
for that.
forbid. Oh
So-
my God, you better not.
So,
Don't get me sick, dude.
yeah, I apologize for that. Just makes me think of this TikTok that I saw. It's kind of funny. There's I'm sure plenty of people have seen it, so it's not that new, but these girls who are like teenagers, high school, southern accent, they're like, if we have such a bad president, why are school shootings down so much this year? And then it clips to this kid, and he's like, oh my God, there's a school shooter, and he just shuts his laptop lid. So, no, not that funny. Well,
I don't know what the punchline is.
well, the punchline was you're saying, don't get me sick, bro, but it's through a screen. So I'm referencing...
Oh, and there was a school shooter on the screen.
Right, exactly. They're like,
Oh.
yeah, sorry, I probably didn't explain that to the full
See,
extent.
that's what the beauty of TikTok is that you can express your artistry through a visual medium and
Yes.
really show people what you're about.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I promise not to get you sick.
Thank you.
So no worries there. For my seed this week, I know last week I was talking about all the changes with my work and everything, with
Yep.
like leadership and management and all. And so this week I was like kind of still adjusting and all. I was feel like there's a lot going on, but we've managed it pretty well. And so I think like moving forward, things are like, we'll be able to manage it. It's not necessarily the ideal situation and setup, but I feel like my team, I can support them well. They can still support me well. So I'm happy that it looks like things will be positive and everything. I was a little hesitant about how to feel with everything. So definitely a thing that's looking up for the coming months and whatnot with work. So
Very cool.
yeah, so that is my Rose, Thorn, and Seed, all drawn out with bad jokes and everything. But Justin, how's your week been, man?
It's been going really well. Yeah, man. Sorry about that. That just went straight over my head. I was like, I do not know.
It would have
What's
helped
going
if
on
I
here.
like referenced the fact that the kid was like homeschooled on a laptop because of
Sure.
COVID.
Okay.
So
There you go.
that's
A little bit of context
it's
might have
fair.
helped.
Yeah. So I just winged it. That was impromptu, but we'll do better next time. So,
That's all right.
but I'm glad to hear you're
So
doing good.
yeah, my rose here for this week. I was sitting before a client. I had like 45 minutes, and one of the things on my list every day, I just have it as sit quietly and breathe. When I originally had the idea, I was like, honestly, putting meditate seems that's like putting too much pressure on it. I don't know how to do that. So I first started by just like, all right, let me just try and sit still in a chair and just like we'll go from there. Now, it's gotten to a point where for like 20 minutes, I just plopped in the chair at the office, deep breath in, deep breath out, deep breath in, deep breath out. Start trying to bat away any of the thoughts that come in, just focus on the in and the out. And the reason it's my rose today is the joke is always like, oh, they're sitting there going, oh, oh, and it seems silly, but there is a sense in which, like, when I'm breathing, I'm basically saying to myself, in, out, in my head as I'm breathing. So no other thoughts can come in. And, like, I can actively feel as I'm, like, thinking those words, I can feel other thoughts, like, we're coming in, but I'm like, in, out. And that's all I think about. And then I'll just like wake up in like 15, 20 minutes and I know I'm not asleep because I'm like conscious there, focusing on the breath and like thinking about my diaphragm raising and in and out and all of that. So I know I'm not asleep, but I say this to say that I now know why they do the ohm thing in a way that like I truly understand it now. It's a useful mechanism to have. Maybe not out loud, but I do understand it now. And also as a caveat of that, I think my I think my meditation has significantly improved to where I can just get a nice little reset anytime. Like I was literally in between clients. I sat down, and when I stood up, I felt so refreshed and focused and ready to go. And when the client came in, we just hit it off, and it was great.
Nice.
So that's my rose here for the week.
Well,
I was pretty excited about that.
yeah, I think that's awesome, and I think like so thinking about it that way, I had never like realized the concept behind like the like saying Om and everything. And so like I'm imagining like what you're doing, like in out can do that. I wonder if having the additional like auditory or like the sound also kind of helps to drown out things because you're also blocking out any potential like noises around you a little bit. It's just what you're saying it, so you're actively thinking about it. You're also like making that noise. And the other part that was what I had always just assumed it was for was more of a breathing like exercise. Like you are like by using that and like exhaling that air and all that you are like making sure you're taking like full breaths and like
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's like the part that I had always just assumed it was. I thought it was just like some technique someone had come up with and people were like, oh, this is great.
I mean, those seem like reasonable. Those seem like reasonable use cases for it as well. Like now that you mention it, the auditory aspect of it it's usually very like rhythmic, and there can be a calm associated with like rhythm and sound and music, so that could be another aspect of it as well. I've just found it useful to help bat away all the bad thoughts that come in. So that's my roast here for the week. I was pretty pleased with that. And then I'll do my seed because it's another good thing, and then my thorn. I'm about to go in on this lady. And all right, so my seed here is a decently big one, but I'll try and keep it nice and succinct. So a couple of friends were, there was some discourse about the Miami Grand Prix, which we'll get into a little bit later. There was some discourse about the Miami Grand Prix, and that was preceded by a conversation with Sarah that I was having, where we were just kind of hanging out, just having a conversation, whatever. And the one thing I said to her, I was like, man, I've got tips that are just burning a hole in my pocket. I wanna buy something on there, and I've got a million ideas. And I was just kind of like laying my thoughts out there. I was like, but this and that. So the one thing I really want to get is a dual land. One of a collector goal would be to complete my set of dual lands that I have, that a client a couple of years ago graciously gifted to me, in like a large bulk boxes. She was like, here, I have these old Magic cards, you could use them, whatever. And there was some fire in those boxes, some dual lands included. I would love to finish out that set.
Nice.
So, but they're a pretty penny, right? And so I was talking to Sarah, and I was like, damn, I wish I just had the patience to just save up and just buy the thing. Because there's always this feeling of like, oh, but I could get like a couple of these singles for this deck. Oh, I think I want to get that. Oh, let me go buy this. Oh, and then this idea came to me where I was like, oh, it just feels like buying a bunch of appetizers when all I really want is the steak dinner, and a dual land being the steak dinner. And I was like, I think I'm like hung up here. And she was like, well, why don't you just like split your tips like 80-20, do, blah and blah. I was like, man, that's a great idea. All right, so I slept on it. When I woke up the next morning, I woke up to, and this is going to be down the line, flavor of the week, Kendrick Lamar, Heart Part 5 comes out. One of the opening lines is, as I grow older, I learn life is perspective. That's like in the opening little thing. And it just like, it smacked me across the face. I was like, no, stop. So I'm thinking about these like short-term, I thought about it like this. Do you remember we had that conversation where it was like, where you're going to get 80% of your happiness out of 20% of what you do.
Yeah.
And I thought about what all investing in a dual land could mean, what it represents, what it does for me in the now. I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I started thinking about the Miami Grand Prix conversation with my friends, and how part of what I said to Kyle was, yeah, we would love to get to X, Y, and Z. But on that very same day or within close, I'm like, I want to drop X amount of money on this dual land. Those are very, very, very conflicting ideas. So I was like, man, I really got to think about this, because like one is clearly better than the other. And I basically did. I just like threw them up on a chart, said pros and cons of this, pros and cons of that. And like when you really looked at the data, it was the investment in a Grand Prix ticket goes so much farther than just this one piece of cardboard here in this small time frame. And is there a world where one Grand Prix ticket actually ends up equating to more dual lands in the long term?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what if that is all it's going to take for listeners to like really see like, holy shit, like these guys are about it. Like they're potting from like from the location, they're at the track, they're at these races.
Yeah.
Like, that could put the pot on a whole different level. That could put the pot on something that is like a way out, right? So a way out, I mean, I could buy whatever dual lands I want at that point. It's like a patience. It's a waiting game.
Yeah, I think you're the perspective part. Like that's also a good way to think about it.
Big time.
Just for a lot of people, saving in general is like a difficult thing. But it's like at the same time, if you're like, oh well, like I just will, like I'm gonna set this money aside and all, and like be conscious, a little more conscious of what I'm spending. Don't buy that Domino's pizza that one night and get delivery and all. Like maybe just get a frozen pizza from the grocery store. Like these different like alternatives, and it's not that hard to cut out $50 from. And I granted, I know everyone has different financial situations, but like to set aside a small like amount just to do that and kind of build that up over time, by just making those small like changes and like do I need this, and like thinking that through. So
Yeah, so I think overall it's just like it that whole thing just totally reshaped my mind. I was like, this is the route that I think is best, and so that's kind of why I decided. Because to a certain degree, if I went another route, I would actually like be lying to like myself, kind of, to you, kind of, to them, kind of, and in a way, I realized that was not aligned with what I wanted to do. What I really want to do is just get to a goddamn fucking Grand Prix.
nice.
But let me finish up with my thorn here really quick. So I've been trying to get a credit card limit increase so I can buy a goddamn Grand Prix ticket. Dude, this bank has been stringing me along for weeks, dude. I'm calling every week, getting just the runaround. So many emails have been written on my behalf. Yes, Mr. Justin. Oh, no problem. Yes, that's just inappropriate. Man, I'm like getting calls so early, and they're like, oh, well, oh man, it is just a nightmare. I hate dealing with these people, and it has just been a big old headache, so that's a thorn in my side. But let's move on to bigger and brighter things.
Time to get a new bank.
Well, yeah. I mean, seriously, like, it's crazy. Super, super not happy about it.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that's my thorn. I'm hogging here. Let's go to the Miami Grand Prix.
Sounds good. And so first off, just like as usual with the U.S. Grand Prix, we see a lot of celebrities that we know. I'm sure when people are watching the Grand Prix in the European countries and all on Sky Sports and watching the paddock walk and all, they're seeing all these people that they recognize that maybe I don't from films in their country or whatnot. But I saw some pretty cool ones, like Michael Jordan met with Pierre Gasly leading up to the race and all, so that was pretty awesome. We saw a bunch of IndyCar drivers there, including Roman Grosjean meeting up with his boy Kevin Magnussen after they had the IndyCar race in, I believe it was Alabama, or maybe I think it was Alabama, the most recent one. So already in that section of the world. But among those IndyCar drivers, Colton Herta was there. And he, according to Mr. William Buxton, will be doing some testing for McLaren later this season. He apparently has a lot of interest in F1 and driving or taking a shot at that level of competition. And so I just thought that was a really cool thing as I was going through looking at all these different sports figures and celebrities and all. I'm like, oh, like not only are these IndyCar guys there, like Colton Herta is potentially going to get a shot. And Will Buxton said that Lando rates him incredibly highly. So that's pretty cool to see. I think it would be exciting to see a little bit of crossover kind of the other way. We've seen plenty of F1 drivers go to IndyCar. Marcus Ericsson, Romain Grosjean, Fernando Alonso. Like, we've had all these different guys, but there have been few occasions where it has been the reverse. So I think that would be awesome, especially for a young, extremely talented driver like Colton Herta to potentially be getting into F1 and all. So.
And you said McLaren?
For McLaren, yeah, because he drives. I think it's one of the Aero McLaren cars in IndyCar. So,
Gotcha.
so he
Yeah, that'd be
already.
interesting.
I'm pretty
Daniel
sure.
Ricciardo out, Herta in.
So, well, I mean, Ricardo, he still has at least 1 year on his contract, and also I think maybe it's just preliminary kind of. Hey, like, let's see if we think this is worth doing anything about,
Right.
and then who knows where it goes from there. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool thing to see, and all leading into the Grand Prix weekend. So.
Yeah, I'm curious how many of those individuals really are just like fans of the sport. Like, seeing the director of Star Wars there in the paddock. I'm curious how many of them that, like, get the fucking long zoom in. I'm curious how many of them are just like, I'm just really into fucking AlphaTauri. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
like,
mean? And they wish they had the glasses with the nose and the mustache with the hat. Like, they press so far in on
well, George Lucas was one, but then I forgot.
and then the first lady where she's
Oh,
and like
yeah.
it's their face on the screen that they're looking at, and they
Yeah.
just have to like keep looking at that screen. It's so weird. There's got to be a percentage of them that are just there for the sport or there because it's like in the country and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But
I think it's cooler when they're like mixing it amongst the people on the paddock and you see them or whatever, or they're
yeah,
like chatting people up, talking to engineers. Like,
that's like
instead
that's
of just
way
like
more natural.
they're sitting up in the stands just like eating some popcorn, and it's just like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a wild push in, and I'm not sure many of them appreciate it.
yeah, it's got to be a little odd. I know with Michelle Obama being there and all, Lewis had met with her. I know that I think the two of them and some other members of the black community had talked to some. I saw a video of Lewis talking to some probably middle school to high school age black children from like the Miami area and all, and kind of they had a little panel of asking questions, him answering, talking about his drive to be no pun intended, but like his motivation getting into F1, and kind of how it's interesting, like being the one of few people of color in F1. I guess only black person, but amongst other different like ethnicities and all. So I thought that was an interesting like focus of the broadcast a little bit, seeing Michelle Obama there, and then all the side events and all going on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, though. Lewis is the ambassador for diversity and inclusion in the sport, I think, which is a great initiative. So it makes sense that the, like, biggest name in the sport is having time for the thing that he wants to highlight in the sport. I know, we've heard him say he just wants to be an ambassador and an influence on the motorsport for, as his legacy. And I imagine it's moments like that for these kids that are a part of that legacy. And it's honestly, I think it's great for I guess it would be the Formula One broadcast that is like putting that show together. So that's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's cool seeing like the reach that F1 drivers are starting to get more in America. I think that's really blown up over the past few years with the Drive to Survive series and all. I know there were plenty of like American F1 fans prior to that, but I think that helped push it to this kind of mainstream. So a pretty interesting time in Miami and all, and then we have a really interesting race and practice sessions qualifying. We have drivers complaining about the surfaces a lot. What did you think going into the race it was gonna kind of be like? I think I did not expect the race to turn out or to go how it did.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable teaser before we get into it. I think one of the large contributors to that was tire warm up in like FP1 and 2. It seemed like drivers were having a really tough time getting a hold of the circuit. I guess there was a lot of like dust on the track, so that contributed to issues. So from that perspective, yeah, it seemed like it was going to be a very like messy race.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm pretty sure it was turn 11 where a bunch of people like spun, hit the wall, or just like went
Ocon
off.
and Sainz, I believe, both had really big crashes in like 47 and 51 Gs respectively, hitting the wall there.
Yeah, crazy. That section was so tough, and when yeah, I have a note here from the broadcast of the I think it was in the practice or the qualifier when one of the Alpines went off. They got a shot of the engineer, and his face was just like, "Oh, bro." Just heartbroken, and man, I felt it because yeah, it seemed like in the early stages of the weekend it was going to be a very tough track, especially that like little back section in sector 2. Yeah, it just seemed like a really tough track were the initial impressions from, Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, and I think my biggest concern was, like you had mentioned, the spins, the grip on the track and everything. It seemed like it was going to be potentially a kind of dangerous race, which I was like not excited about. Drivers were talking about the track not rubbering in super well, that there was only like one line that you could drive. And then, of course, like the night before the race, I saw something on Twitter about it raining in Miami and potentially like washing away a bunch of the rubbered in parts. And I'm like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. I was like, this is just not going to go well. But I think we had a really interesting and exciting race, like lots of good opportunities to pass throughout. It was a lot of movement on the grid and everything. So I thought it ended up being a much better race than I initially expected, based on what everyone was saying, what all the reports were from the track this past weekend.
And aside from just like track notes, the one thing that I thought was interesting, and this may be like maybe a comment to look forward to as we like see some of these races, but the tires seem to be like way more durable than last year. With what some of the analysts were saying, one stop or two stop on the medium and the hards, depending on what happens at the end of the race and yada yada, which is surprising to me. Where on the same weekend the temperatures were skyrocketing and they were saying, oh, hot track, tire deg, blah blah blah, but it seems like they're really resilient in the sense of it was really warm, and it didn't seem like they were having many problems in the race to go through a bunch of tires.
Yeah, and I think part of that may be, so I know one of the biggest like causes of deg on the tires, at least initially, is the outlap. Like they're always talking about keep like protecting the tires on the outlap, like don't go too crazy, don't like mess up these tires. And I think if you go out too hard on them and don't let them warm up and all, that you can do some damage early that really decreases the life like drastically, is how it kind of seems. I think gotcha. With the maybe, and this is just like from stuff I've seen, I don't know if I'm 100% on the nose, but with the track being warmer and everything for the race, 3:30 in the afternoon, Miami, like I think maybe that helped with getting past that point of potential like harmful wear on the tires to allow the drivers to kind of just get back into their groove and racing without that being as much of a concern. So.
Sure. Yeah, there were a couple of moments in the race as well on the radio. We heard them talking about, I think it was Lewis who was talking about on the mediums. There was a sector where it was like, where he felt like he was really losing like one section of his tire, and then it ended up coming back to him, which I find to be fascinating, where there's like these layers of good rubber in the tires that they're able to find as they burn them down. So yeah, overall it was an interesting race just from that perspective. I thought the track was a lot of fun. The triple DRS zone made for some really exciting racing.
Yeah.
Again, I think this was a track that allowed and showcased the new aero packages that the cars have. They were really able to like stick tight to each other, and there were a bunch of good battles throughout the field.
Oh, absolutely. It was an awesome race. And I know, like, leading up to the race, too, we had talked about Mercedes bringing some new parts and new packages. And unfortunately for them, it turned out that none of the new parts, wings and floors and whatever else, reduced their porpoising, really. So they're still kind of in the same spot. However, really, really solid weekend from Lewis, putting himself up to start from P6. And then an insane recovery drive from George, starting P12, not getting out of Q2. Dropped back to 16th in the opening lap, I believe, and then fights his way all the way back for the P5 finish. That was an awesome drive from him. Still the only driver to finish top 5 in every race this season. So huge props to him and Lewis for putting out a really solid performance this weekend.
And it's really tough to tell. I'm curious, is this because the track was good for the car, which may not, because you were saying the porpoising, and I kind of noted it too, where is this a track that suited their car that they have, which is why we saw the P5, P6, or are they, like you had just mentioned, the new dev parts, is that contributing to a little more pace, a little more control out of the Mercedes? But yeah, I really think the 5 and 6 is great for them. And Russell gained 7 over the course of the race. It may have been 8, depending on where he started. But yeah, I thought they were way and above what the narrative has been. Would you agree?
Definitely. I think there's still like the biggest like hang up for everyone is they don't have a car that can fight for the constructors right now. They flat out don't. Like, and it's not something that's going to change overnight, but I think based on the past 8 years of performance and everything, people are just not used to this. But I think that with the car that they have, like, that is kind of the pinnacle currently of where they could finish, and that's really the key, I think, in F1 for all the teams is having your driver finish as at the absolute like maximum that their vehicle can allow, and driving that car to the limit and all. And I think that from their performance and turnaround this weekend, that is definitely something that, especially for Lewis, I think, not that he had like lost any mojo or confidence and all, but it's just nice to see him have a good weekend and everything and put the car up there. George, again, getting some really favorable tire strategies and everything, running the hard tires, I believe initially because of his starting position, making those last for like 47 laps or something like that before the virtual safety car gave him a free pit stop. So yeah, he has been on the right side of a lot of those calls, and props to him too on the radio, team radio. He's like, I don't think it's going to be good if we pit now. Let's just hang on and see if something happens. And he was able to keep the tires in good enough condition to make it to that point. So
Yeah, and then like you said, we had which led to him getting the free pit stop. We had the contact between Gasly and Norris, which was pretty tough for both of them. Obviously, neither of them get to finish that race.
Well, I don't think Pierre would have anyway. He was having engine trouble, which is why he had I think he had lost power, which is why he had
Right.
been so slow through that portion. Just unfortunate that he did not see Lando coming through and just moved one way a little bit while that was going on. Not obviously intentional, but just a tough situation.
Yeah, big time, and it definitely threw a monkey wrench into the race. I think for everybody, obviously, it bunches up the field. We saw the implementation of the new restart rule, where once everybody got bunched up, they let the lap people go ahead, and then they did the safety car in. Again, in that scenario, we saw Max really get the jump on his opponent behind. He is quite good at that not always seen section of a race.
Yeah, and it was also like like they were talking about it as it was happening. It was an just a interesting moment because you're one waiting to see, does he get a good jump, does he put himself in good position, but also on the track there at the end of the circuit there were a lot of opportunities that the drivers behind could get into the slipstream. So I feel like where on most tracks you would like bolt a little sooner, he was kind of just waiting it out, like trying to be like, no, I don't want to give anyone the slipstream, and find a good spot to kind of catch everyone off guard a little bit. So yeah, he's really been solid with those. I was extremely impressed though too with how well the Red Bull was able to defend when the Ferrari had DRS later on as well. Those last 10 laps, the first five or so of them, Leclerc was hanging on to Max really well. But he just couldn't quite get it there. He had the one opportunity where he tried to kind of dive down a little bit. I'm guessing at that point used most of his energy that he had stored up.
Yep.
Because after that point and not making that move stick, he was just slowly dropped back out of DRS range and then a little further and further. But I mean, in a similar vein, I thought that that Checo was gonna like have a shot at Sainz, and he had a really nice effort to try and get that position, get onto the podium, but just wasn't quite there.
Yeah, and I think the restart gave him that opportunity again. I know he was pretty close to signs for a good amount of the race, but a decent bit back. So he got the opportunity again. I think he locked up a little bit, came in a little hot on that turn, and Carlos Sainz was able to keep that position and get himself on the podium for a 2-3 for the Ferraris. Checo ended up P4 in that scenario, I believe.
Yeah, and a nice drive from Sainz too there. He kind of saw Checo coming in hot and let him go past, do the little inside out maneuver and all, and regain the place. Sainz put in a really nice drive, especially after his crash during the practice sessions and all. So really glad that one, he was doing okay, but two, that he was able to put in a nice performance after the after that crash and all for into the rest of the weekend. Oh. Howdy. So yeah, solid performance from Sainz after a tough start to the weekend and all. But we did end up, of course, with Max getting the win. Ferrari 2-3, Red Bull 4, Mercedes 5-6. Valtteri also had a really solid race, and Esteban Ocon starting from 20th on the grid, making it all the way up into P8.
Yeah, phenomenal drive by him, honestly. And it kind of when undocumented, it seemed, throughout the whole race. The focus was on a bunch of other people, but you just slowly watched him creep up the left side of the screen. So I thought that was pretty cool, and a great drive from him. Honestly, he's been very impressive.
Yeah, looked awesome. Alex Albon, another standout, like sliding in and picking up points with Fernando Alonso's 5-second penalty that he got. So that's awesome, seeing him continue to get more points for Williams and seeing them kind of climb up. But I do have to feel awful for Mick. Getting hit by Fernando in that situation. Or, no, I guess Mick hit Seb. Who hit?
I think...
Who did Fernando hit?
It looked like Mick hit Seb.
Yeah.
Seb, from the camera angle they had, it seemed like Seb was pretty far ahead of him in that
yeah,
corner.
So I think I forgot who Fernando had his run in. That might have been with Magnussen. So, but yeah, with Mick on track to get points for the first time in his F1 career and just couldn't quite pull it out, unfortunately. I would have loved to see that because he's been looking really solid throughout the season. He's had some good quality performances starting ahead of Kevin on a couple of occasions. I think including this weekend. Yeah, he was half a second up on Kevin in qualifying. So really a bummer that he wasn't able to get those first F1 points, but he's like right there. So it's one of those things that's like it's gonna happen before we know it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hopefully we can see some improvements here over the next couple races from the Haas vehicle, and then hopefully they'll be able to hook it up a little bit better. Dude, the disappointment, and like he was like distraught on the radio. He was like that was my corner. It's like, oh no, dude.
Well, and they're talking about. Well, I think it's also that like so they were talking about it on the broadcast, but like we've seen it where
Vettel and him are homies.
Yeah, they're like Vettel kind of looks out for him and all, and so like I think in a situation where, I mean, we've seen Seb blow up on the radio at his own pit crew in his last year with Ferrari, where he's like, they're going at it over the team radio and all. And for him to, they crashed together, he immediately realized who it was. And he was like, I don't know where he was trying to put the car, man. Like, I don't know why
he said, like, what was that gap? I didn't see it. Oh, I guess it's over.
Yeah, and so, like, I think in with other drivers, the reaction would have been different. But that's kind of cool to see, even in that situation, and, like, all the frustration that has to happen when, like, whether it's just an unfortunate thing, like, Pierre knocking Lando and taking him out of the race unintentionally, or Mick just trying to go for a move and it just the gap's not there and knocking himself and Seb out of contention for points. The reaction is just like it was kind of wholesome. It's like that fucking sucks, but like it is what it is. A lot of drivers don't have that kind of. I mean, especially we saw George throw his headphones at Valtteri. We saw Max and Lewis on many occasions. Like, that's a pretty tame reaction.
Yeah, I remember the one with Valtteri and George. That was pretty funny, where he like trounces up to him and like chucks it, like the thing that's like attached to him in whatever way.
Yeah, it's like a lifeguard who's like spinning their whistle. They're just
just like came right back. It's like, oh, sick, dude. But that's never good. Happy everyone's okay. But overall, I think it was a pretty good race from the ones that finished.
Definitely. I think like what we saw, like we had mentioned earlier from this Miami track, I think it opens up some good opportunities for good racing in the future. I do think that they do have a bit more work to do just in terms of providing a little bit of a better surface and all for the drivers. Maybe after this experience, they can hopefully smooth out some of the issues that the drivers felt in terms of the track and quality and dust and lines and all. Because I think that it provided an opportunity for some fun racing. So I'd like to see us back there again and have more quality racing there.
Yeah, just without such a dusty ass track, dude.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens
That shit.
in Miami. You just got sand everywhere.
Like, hardly. It's literally fake sand next to fake yachts and a fake bay.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the fake boats. I don't get why they did it, but at the same time, I'm like, it kind of looks cool on the broadcast. They like used it as seating for some people. There's like people standing up on the fake boats. I'm like,
we kept clowning those people. We were like, how much do you think those fucking fake yachts cost to be able to hang out there? I bet whoever collected the tickets for that was just caking. Like, oh yeah, you can go hang out on our plastic toy back there. Go for it for $10K an hour.
I thought we were gonna see Kimmy up there on like when he left Monaco and hopped on his yacht with his buddies. I thought
he would have to crash out first.
I was like, oh man, like all these fake yachts here. Like we're seeing all these IndyCar drivers and former F1 people. Maybe Kimmy's hanging out there.
he might have been. Honestly, I think he would have more taste than that. Those were pretty tacky.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but I don't know. Miami's also just kind of a weird place in my mind. I feel like it's just kind of this party city, and everyone like knows that and is just like, they're like, yep, that's Miami. It's a crazy place, fake yachts and fun times. I don't know,
dusty tracks.
Yeah, fake yachts and dusty tracks. So but at the end of the day, we end up with Red Bull closing the gap a little bit more in the constructors fight. Only 6 points back from Ferrari at this point, so huge gains that they've made over the past few weeks with that. Max has still won every race that he has finished this season, so he's up there just 19 points back of Charles now, who still Charles has put in some awesome drives. P2 is still quality spot, and he's still got a good lead in the standings. So there's going to be plenty of good racing, I think, going forward throughout the season. I'm really enjoying this year. I think it's been a nice change of pace and all, and we've seen some really impressive driving and quality out of the drivers.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I just want to follow up on last week's note. My mom did join us for the race. She stayed for the whole thing.
Nice.
And overall, I think she just enjoyed the day. I think she just enjoyed spending time with us. But at the end of it all, I asked her, I was like, well, how did you enjoy it, your first F1 race? She said, well, I have to say, it was way more exciting than, anything else I've seen, but it was still just a car race. I was like, yeah, fair enough. Well, hopefully we see you for another one.
Yeah.
But, so I think she enjoyed it. It was just very funny that she even, participated.
I would love to see her, hear her reaction to watching, rainy, messy kind of race. It's just dumping buckets at Silverstone or something, and you see the days that you see this the water spraying up behind the cars, and you're like, how does anyone see this? How can anyone be figuring out a braking zone? How how? Just in general, I'd be curious to see her thoughts after that, because Miami, yeah, it was fun, but I can also see that perspective of, it's just like car racing. But if you see something with some real crazy stuff going
Like some
on, or
Jeopardy
like
associated.
the race that Ocon won that last season, that there was all the craziness and shakeups and everything, like that would be one where I'd be like, oh, okay, like this is like that's a wild one. I can
Sure.
maybe has a little more intrigue than just kind of a standard like sunny day race. Even
Well, here's
even
the
a
flip
good
side
one.
of it. I did warn her. I was like, there may be a safety car here at the start, and from like that back sector in sector 2, I thought, hey, we may see some contact. We may see a red flag here. And I don't think she would I don't think she would enjoy that much at all. I don't think she would enjoy the yeah, I'm not sure, but
The
overall,
potential like risk and all
yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't think she would find that very exciting. But yeah, she may be inclined to, come to another USA based race like at Austin, or join us for the Las Vegas one or whatever. But yeah,
Nice.
it was a fun race, fun day, fun track, and I think it was a great showing for the inaugural race.
Definitely. So, looking forward to hopefully hearing about your mom watching more F1, but also looking forward to more good races. But we digress and move on to another big topic that we've got plenty we can talk about. MSI has started. We have had, as Justin mentioned, I believe it's been I think it's actually been 12 games so far. So 6 on day 1 and 6 on day 2, and
Gotcha.
yep. So just double checked the math there, and yeah, so 12 games so far. Were there any games that stuck out to you? Any that you were watching particularly closely? I definitely was tuned in on the G2 EG games, so that was my main focus. But I watched through highlights for all games if I couldn't watch the whole match.
Sure. I think overall, I guess the good place to start would just be overall impressions of what we've seen. Yeah, I think we can focus in a little bit on the NAEU games because they did have 2 of them so far, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the pick ban meta has been pretty interesting overall. And there are a couple of champs that I was very surprised to see. The Karthus and the Vi I thought were pretty surprising on day 1, and not the route that I thought teams were going to be going based on the patch.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We see as certain junglers get kind of targeted out, we've seen other ones climb up the priority and all. But also, it kind of has been a little standard in some ways for what we typically see as at international competition. We're seeing a lot of the mages coming out in the mid lane, so we're seeing a lot of the Zoes, the Aries. We saw Syndra come out and get played, and so we're seeing a good bit of that going on. And with that, bruiser junglers and divey junglers have really surfaced to the top, because we are seeing I think a heavier focus on utilizing those top lane dives and bot lane dives to get early leads in games and kind of set up your different lanes. So having a Vi or a Jarvan or a Xin Zhao and these different kind of bruisier jungle champions, I think it's not shocking that those surfaced in international play, but the Vi was not one that was high on my tier list. So
Yeah, Not up there at all. The other interesting pick, now that you mention it, has been the Wukong. Couple of teams playing that in the jungle, and I guess I was kind of blind to it. At the outset, I thought it was just like an interesting flex pick that they could put in the top or the mid lane, or not the mid lane, top or the jungle. And it seems like it is a pretty versatile pick. We've seen some teams use it better than others, like for engage. But yeah, overall, that was another pick that was really surprising was the Wukong, and especially that it's a flex pick where we see it possibly being able to be played in a couple of different roles. I think that's pretty fun.
Yeah, and also getting picked up by Kyria for T1 in the support role for their game against AZE. I don't know if that's just bullying because that game felt like it or what, but I don't think we will typically be seeing the Wukong support getting picked up, but
Probably
seeing
not.
that matched with the Senna, T1 looked really, really solid in that game and through the first 2 days. And so that was my other just initial impression. Other than the picks and bans, we saw RNG and T1 both come out and play like the teams that we expected them to be. T1 even in games like I think their first game against Saigon Buffalo, it was kind of even-ish at the start, and then T1 just pulled away. But I think that was the thing of note that I had with T1 and RNG. It didn't matter really how even things looked in terms of the map, their rotations, their objective focus and objective control were just extremely strong. We saw RNG get multiple towers with one of the Rift Heralds in mid lane. We saw rotating all around the map for dives on top lane. And
Yeah, the
just
synergy
anywhere.
between Faker and Owner was pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
They were just everywhere together.
Yeah.
With the TF ult.
It was nuts. Owner played the Kindred and had a really ridiculous game as well. That looked really strong. Again, not something that I think is gonna necessarily be picked that frequently, but definitely something that it's cool to see is in their back pocket. So. So that was really what impressed me from both T1 and RNG. They no matter how close the games were and everything at different points, they just controlled the flow and pace of the game and were able to kind of run through it that way. And I think we'll get to see that a good bit more as we're going into day 3 and kind of the second round robin with the teams. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. So far, T1 obviously and RNG looking like favorites. They're definitely playing pretty well. I was surprised. I was surprised to see PSG Talon go 0-2. I thought they would have had a better showing against Red Canids, and I don't think they played particularly poorly or anything. But it was a team that I was surprised not to see get a win on the board in the first 2 days. But on your RNG note, in their game on day 1 against the I guess that's the Wildcats, the Istanbul Wildcats, I thought it was fascinating. They used 4 bans on Holy Phoenix and they put him down on Jin, where it didn't seem that bad because the lethality, it's nice and cheap, does a good amount of damage. Your ult is still very relevant in the fights, but I just thought it was funny that they literally just banned him out. They were like, all right, you don't see that too often where they star kill somebody where it's just like, okay, he's the best player, just take away all the good champs from him and we can just win by playing standard in every other sense of the game. And they just remove 4 ADs from him. I thought that was pretty funny, but they may have not even needed to, right? I think they still would have had a decent shot in that matchup overall, but yeah, it was a shame Holy Phoenix didn't get to shine. But yeah, RNG still looking good. Their team comps looked very different than, well, I guess except the I guess except the Ari and Nautilus.
Mm.
But especially in their second game, I thought their team comp looked pretty dissimilar from what they were liking in playoffs. Obviously, a lot of time since then, but notably like the Braum and the Volibear are pretty different looks. But I think that's just what's like the meta now.
Yeah.
Overall, they're still on the Ari, obviously, and liking the Ezreal as well, which I do have a note about the Ezreal. It looks so good with the Triforce. And
Mm.
when that is like the good build and the right path where you go Triforce, get the stacking tier, like he is chunking once you get that
Mm.
Triforce. And this is when it's like, okay, yep, Ezreal definitely like I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. He's got a good build path that like is hitting.
Yeah, definitely, and it is that like solid Triforce, like getting the poke down. It's worked really well into some of these comps where like RNG against the Istanbul Wildcats, like you had mentioned, they don't really have someone who's scaling that well into a tank, primarily with Farfetch. The support for the Wildcats getting kind of behind in their lane and just not being able to get as tanky, and then similarly with Starscreen on the Gragas, like just not able to do what they wanted to in lane and not be able to give the protection that you would hope for when you've got this Ezreal just throwing out crazy Qs and chunking any of your team out. The other point of note that I thought was like, and so this is just kind of as I had kind of alluded to and all with the dive and the kind of map focus and macro focus working around the map. A lot of these champions that we're seeing are just really, really good at diving turrets. You have the Gwen that has her like invincible ability. You have the Viego who once he gets the kill, it doesn't matter if he's been tanking turret down to 2 HP. He can use that reset, lose turret aggro, come back up, and just come out easily. We're seeing the Camille get picked up a lot. We're seeing these the Alistar and a number of these champs. So that dive heavy focus, I think, is going to continue throughout what we're seeing going forward in the group stage. I think once we get to the best of stages, it may change a little bit just because I think the teams that are playing at that point will most likely be on a more level playing field than when we're seeing some of the teams like the T1 versus AZE match. I think there's no one's surprised that T1 won that pretty heavily. So I think once we get to that later stage, we may see those drafts change. But for the meantime, I wouldn't be surprised to just see this kind of continue.
Yeah, and one of the little trifectas that we saw was Viego, Ari, Tristana, where as long as they get one kill in the fight, they can just keep resetting and continue to snowball that advantage forward. So, yeah, there's a couple of reset champs in the meta, which is just really solid for dive comps. Obviously, does a whole lot of damage. Speaking of the team compositions, and this is where we can get to kind of the showcase matches for us, the relevant stuff. In game 3 on day 1, pretty sure that was the G2 versus EG. Or no, that was G2 versus Order. They had picked the Karthus. They first picked the jungle Karthus, and it was super easy for a G2 just to itemize the Locket of the Iron Solari first, negate a whole bunch of that damage. We saw a couple of Zonias show up. Obviously, that's in a lot of builds anyway, but it is a great answer to the Karthus ult. They brought it up on the cast, but I think it's a big mistake to draft something like that as the single like AP damage, where games like I'm pretty sure T1 won in 17 minutes, 18 minutes. So I don't think you should rely on a pick like Karthus in a meta where the best team at the tournament can win before he's even level 6.
Yeah, it's definitely not something I expect, and I think that with that, they were probably going for a little bit of a surprise pick to start things off, similarly to how we saw the Nocturne jungle come out at Worlds the other year. But it is really pretty easy to itemize. Like you said, the Locket of the Iron Solari on Braum. We also saw Flack had bought the stopwatch, and I believe Caps, Yankos, and Broken Blade all took the stopwatch ability from the inspiration. So they all have that Zonia's to utilize at a important moment in the game, and they were able to play really well. I don't think that taking the stopwatch in the inspiration tree was the game-winning decision, but it definitely was a nice adjustment to that pick. And I think G2, through their first 3 games, we've seen them play very well and kind of start to shift things around a little bit. Pick some picks that are more their own, and play their own style. And I think that's what teams should be doing when you're not one of the top 2 regions potentially, is play your own style really well. And they brought out things like they brought the Pike out twice in a couple of different games as some extra damage. They were utilizing the control mages in the mid lane really well with the Zoe, the Articuno, Anivia, and the I'm blanking on the third, and the Galio. Yeah, so I think they're kind of focusing on that play style, and it's suited them very well so far.
Yeah, it's amazing how much the Pike is really a flavor of Europe pick. I know Hillsang really popularized that, really liked that pick. And obviously now G2 picking that up with Targamas.
Yeah. So big props for them. Even in the second game against EG on day 2, EG had some opportunities that looked like maybe they could kind of work their way back into that game and wrap that up. But they just focused Danny so heavily, I think, early on, and put him so far behind that it just was tough to get to that power spike and everything later on the Ezreal to be able to do the kind of damage that they would have needed. We saw them hit that mid-game power spike and start turning the game around and everything, and then as soon as it got past that point, it just was G2 all over again, winning the big team fights. So
yeah, and it was I think North America played, I think EG played pretty well in both games against them. But there was it got to the like post Baron, post 2 Baron scenario, and that's gonna be a place where I don't know how much experience these teams have making those kind of, we've already seen like inhibitor trading, like pseudo base racing going on. So yeah, teams are really coming to play. But will EG play G2 again?
yeah, so they'll get one more against G2. So
Okay.
because of their group missing one of their teams and only having 3 in it, they will get 3 games against Team Order, and then
squad.
3 against G2. So they'll still each get 6 games total, whereas the other groups, they're just playing each team twice.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
I think one of the things in the game that really stood out was the in their first matchup where JoJo was on the rise. getting his flash burn in the mid lane, basing, teleporting, just running it straight down to just die. That was pretty uncharacteristic, honestly. He seems like he's got better fingers and like better decision making than that. So that was pretty weird, and I think actually gave G2 a pretty like good advantage into that game.
Oh yeah.
Gave them a lot of mid lane control, gave them a lot of vision around that area, and they were able to push that forward.
Yeah, well, and like you said, the mid lane control was huge, and Anivia gives such strong wave clear. Like, I thought it was actually a really cool counter almost to the Rise pick, because you're all of a sudden going, okay, you're not gonna like be able to leave lane without losing your turret extremely quickly, because I will drop my ult and clear this wave in 2 seconds, and if you roam, like, my whole wave is pushing your turret.
Right. You're gonna lose too much.
Yeah, so really interesting counter pick. I'd be curious to see if that comes out similarly against like maybe the Twisted Fate or the Galio as well, to try and punish that. Maybe less so against the Galio, because that's typically more of a team fighting pick. But yeah, really interesting kind of shift, and not much or not heavily picked champion to kind of counter EG's game plan.
Yeah, big time. And he obviously played it well. I think that goes to Caps as a very versatile player. Not a mid lane pick we would have expected out of them, like really at all. So very surprising. Obviously, he did really well with it, and like we had said, had a good amount of control with the pick, and did some work in the team fights as well. I think his zone control was insane. In the river, you can slice it up any way you want. You can cut up that battlefield, which is really fun. I think he played it very well.
Yeah, and the only other point I had, which you had already touched on a little bit with JoJo, he making some uncharacteristic mistakes in the second game that EG played against G2, and even a little bit in the game against Team Order. I just felt like Danny was also not quite the aggressive self that we have seen. He seemed a little more kind of apprehensive about his different plays and everything, and we saw that really come through with the Ezreal pick getting just kind of put down. He seemed like he was doing similar things to what you said with JoJo, just walking down the lane, stepping out a little too far with no one there, trying to win a 1v1 team fight against the Kai'Sa when the jungler, the Graves, is right there in the wings. You don't have the vision. It was just like those mental errors, like being not confident, but just a little bit like reckless. Almost. Yeah. Once you're, and I think it's just like maybe the uncomfortableness of being on the international stage, and so it would be good to see if they can pull out just a little bit of a better performance going into this these next couple days, and see if they can gain a little bit of that confidence that we saw from them making that amazing run through the LCS lower bracket. So.
Well, and then we did see EG get their first W against Team Order, which I thought was really nice. Overall, I think it was just pretty much a clinic from EG. They played really well. The one thing to offset, the mistake that he made, I thought it was pretty badass right there at the end. JoJo on Ahri, he flashes past the minion to nail the charm. I mean, the game was over anyway. It was just a flashy thing to do. But I thought that was fucking sweet. So yeah, obviously EG, they know how to play. They know what to do. The Wildcats not looking that strong, obviously. Or what did I just say? They were playing against Order, weren't they?
The Team Order, yeah. You said Wildcats. All good.
Gotcha. But yeah, overall, just happy to see that they got a win. But I have to say, when I was watching the G2 games versus them, I was just unconsciously cheering for the G2 plays, where I was like, oh shit, like, oh nice, nice. And maybe I'm secretly EU biased, but yeah, that's just how it went. I think JoJo played really good on the Ari though in that match.
Yeah, I think though if it was the other way around and EG was doing that, you probably would have been like doing the same thing for EG if they were kind of the like leading in that game. I think that at
Like
least
cheering for the winner,
well,
like the winning.
no, but I think that we both kind of like to root for NA typically, but we also like will root for EU at international competition. So like I've cheered for G2 before in semifinals and finals of Worlds, and like even though I'm primarily an NA fan, so it's more that you like don't have a bias against EU, that you're just like, yeah, I'll cheer for him. This is fun. This is good League of Legends.
Ah, okay,
Like,
okay. I'm so open to it that I actually don't hold any biases.
yeah, I
I'll
think,
cheer for G2 today, EG tomorrow.
yeah, just that you're like, oh, I want to see a team playing well, and in those games, especially the first one that G2 played, they were just clicking on all cylinders and were just making stuff happen, and that's fun to watch. Like watching Xiaohu and Faker pull out the Ari pick and just be dashing in and out everywhere and just like doing insane damage in team fights and all was I was having a blast watching that too. So I think
Ari is really fun to watch.
yeah, I think that's just maybe more that you just like watching good League of Legends.
Could be, and I think MSI is definitely delivering this year. Some pretty good League of Legends to be had. Yeah, T1 putting on a clinic in both of their games, honestly. And yeah, it's just been, other than, I would say the only real surprise for me has been PSG not being able to pick up a win, and that the Wildcats are really the only team that seems like they're kind of just like, maybe not up to the echelon of this tournament. But overall, I think the teams are like pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, and well, we'll get to see Red Canids play RNG tomorrow, which I think will be an interesting matchup because Titan has played really well so far in that bot lane for the Red Canids. Someone who has been on the international stage previously, and so he, I think, is probably the best lane to be in a confident position going against RNG and Gala. I think you have to have a strong AD carry to match up in that bot lane. So I think that will be a fun one. And I'm also looking to see how T1 just continues against Detonation Focus Me, who has also looked pretty decent in the start. They've had some pretty solid games. I believe they're still at a 1-1 record, but they looked pretty good so far.
Yeah, and they pulled out that Urgot pick in the top lane, and it dominated that matchup, dude.
It was doing a lot of damage, and they didn't even
so much control from the top side they had from it.
I really thought they were going to win that game too. They just that's a tough one because I could have seen them easily being 2-0 after their first two games as well.
I think they deserve to lose that game, though. Like they should not have been at that Elder Dragon.
100% no. But I think that the
early game looks so good from them.
They could have easily won that. They made some big mistakes that turned it towards Saigon Buffalo's way. But I think in their rematch, I would not be surprised to see things shake out kind of the other way.
Yeah, I can 100%. I can definitely see that going the other way. And then that would be if they're only, and then that would go to tiebreakers, right?
Yep.
Or
so
a tiebreaker. That's pretty exciting.
Depending on how AZE does and if RNG drops any games, if there's any like just discrepancy in the record. So.
But yeah, I thought DFM was and is a pretty fun team to watch, honestly. I think they show up very well every time they're at an international competition.
Definitely. So a lot of fun League of Legends. Did you have any other points of note before we move along into the Magic the Gathering section?
No, I paid my homage to Triforce Ezreal, right? I said it's like it looks good.
Yeah, you said it looks good.
It's on record.
It is
Now.
on
I never
record.
have to say it again.
Yeah, but you nope, don't have to say it again.
All right, cool. We can move
Well,
on.
actually, how about if we see an Ezreal like start a game 10-0 or something like that, then you have to pay homage. If of course it's the Triforce Ezreal build.
Yeah, if it's any build but Triforce, I'll still say trash, and it was just a support that got him those kills, honestly.
Yeah, so 10-0 Ezreal, and you have to say it again, but otherwise,
Okay.
I think you're in the clear.
All right, in the clear. We can move on.
Cool. So Magic, you had your Trees Have Eyes deck.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had that as the name for another deck, and so I changed that so I could have this one have the Trees Have Eyes name.
Nice, that's funny.
And it's all just a dumb movie reference. Obviously, you've seen The Hills Have Eyes, about the fucking ogres in the desert. Yeah, so this is a very fun deck for me, and the results are even funner. So Colfinor, the Last You, he's a big tree. I think of him like an Entman from Lord of the Rings, which is just like epic. So he has a lot of text on him. Basically, when your things die, you can get a thing back from the graveyard. He has Vigilance and Reach. He's a body that just stays on the board, which is pretty cool for, like flavor-wise, and it's just useful to always have your commander. So the deck started out not that good. He was basically just like a conglomeration of a couple of cards that I had in the colors. I was like, I want to use this, I want to use that. Like there's a copy of Dune Blast in there, which is just a board wipe. But you need to be in black, white, green specifically, right? So I was like, I want to use this card. Anyway, it was just like a pile of garbage, and then Modern Horizons 2 came along, and I opened a Karmic Guide, which is the piece to a combo with Revelark, where you sack them to a sack outlet with either your Zulaport Cutthroat on board, your Corpse Knight, your one of the other things that drains people, and then you can just loop them over and over and drain the table. So it's a pretty reliable way to win the game. So I slotted that in, cleaned it up a little bit, came up with cards to fill up my graveyard.
And
when I'm not
which card was that?
Karmic Guide. It's a 3 and white creature.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that combined with the Revelark, they like bring each other back from the graveyard. And then you just combine that with a sacrifice outlet to kill them, and then a way to drain the table when either things die or enter the battlefield.
Well, and the thing that I'm also like, I think is kind of interesting and cool about this deck, just looking through the cards, is it is also pretty, what do you call that? When like a vampire deck or a dragon deck or
like a tribal theme.
Yeah, you've got that going a bit with a lot of the different creatures. Like you've got this tree man, and so like you've got a beanstalk giant, caterpillars. You've got all these little insects and bugs. Then you've got all the elves and like other like live in the woods
like
people,
woodland creatures, yeah.
The tribe elder, the sapling. Like I think that's pretty.
He was an all-star. Sakura Tribe Elder, he was an all-star in the games on Tuesday. It was literally, I said it probably 100 times on Tuesday. All right, I'm going to sack Steve. All right, get Steve back from the graveyard. Sack Steve. Get Steve back from the graveyard. All right, I'm going to go search for a land with Steve. Like, he generated a lot of value for me on Tuesday. So shout out Sakura Tribe Elder.
Why is his name Steve? You just named him?
Yeah, it's just a nickname. I think it was like the Command Zone podcast or something.
Oh,
that, like,
STE Sakura.
Right.
So Steve. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, everybody loves to give like pet names to their cards. There's a black card called Gray Merchant of Asphodel. People just call him Gary.
All right. Oh, because
Yeah.
someone probably read like the gray
Yeah.
wrong at one point. They're like,
Okay.
the Gary Merchant of. Oh wait, let's call him Gary.
But it's just so easy. It's recognition. So yeah, yeah, it works well.
Nice.
So Steve is a great card, but yeah. So originally it was just a pile. It's gotten better. I went 1-2, so I won a game, lost two, and in the game that I won, the Revel Art combo actually won me the game. I got the pieces on board, drained the table, killed everybody, and overall, I just want to say I'm happy with the deck, but more so, and this may be a change of tune a little bit, but Ian was not having a good time, and I was not the reason. And as it turns out, when I think about my play overall, I don't focus out Ian at all. I just think of him as the strongest opponent at the table most times.
That makes
and
sense.
It's obvious that Brett and Jason do too. And they gun for him in a way that would make me feel like, dude, I really just want to play my cards. You know what I mean? And I'm happy I wasn't pointing too much removal Ian's way last night because, man, Brett and Jason were doing it enough. Brett literally took every combat step to swing at Ian. He was like, attack Ian, kill Ian, attack Ian. So yeah, he was maybe not having the best time, but it is a little bit of the other side of that coin is it comes with the territory. If you win 30% of our games, it's gonna happen like that. But yeah, overall it was fun to get a victory and fun to not be the focus of the table. It was hilarious, honestly.
Yeah, I can imagine that feels kind of good because I think it would also be just normal to say that Ian thinks of you as the next strongest player there. So I think in past instances he's definitely been wary of you and maybe focused you out in other games. So the fact that it is happening kind of in the reverse, but also that you don't have to you're not playing any part in it really is kind of amusing.
And interesting for the time being. Obviously, the crown shifts around and who the hated person is, based on who won most recently, I imagine. But yeah, it was just a good night of games. The deck showed up really well, did pretty much exactly what I wanted it to. I'm very happy. The one note that I can make as far as deck building, in game 2, I drew so many lands. I think it was 6 turns in a row I drew a land, which you just don't want to see. I had no way to generate any value with the cards that I had. So I think I can go down to 34 lands. I think I can take 1 out, and I think I can slot a good piece of card draw in to replace that. But other than that, I really have no other changes in mind for the deck. So I'm just super pleased with the dub.
Very cool. That sounds sounds like a blast, and
yeah, it was a good night.
Hopefully, I like seeing some of these other unique decks that you have a little bit. So it's a cool one to get to see, especially get a win. So
yeah, and I was big surprised too, but it just shows if you focus it up just a little bit, it can do wonders. But yeah, a little more card draw, and I'll be happy. Let's finish out this show here, Aaron. Give me your flavor of the week.
Cool. So for my flavor of the week for my food, as I had mentioned, Colleen and I went to a wedding this past weekend, but on Saturday, because Colleen was in the wedding, in the bridal party, she and I were at the rehearsal lunch, which food was all great, awesome. It was nice, getting to meet everyone, and we were getting ready to leave, and the groom's parents were like, hey, pretty much no one is going back to a place that has a refrigerator from here. They're just going to the hotel or whatever. And you guys live around here. Here, take this leftover pan of tortellini. And so Colleen and I get this just giant, it's a large metal pan of tortellini, and we ate some of it that night and didn't make a dent at all. It was packed in there, and I'm I'm going to be indefinitely just eating tortellini. So I've had it, I
You
think.
are a tortellini, dude.
I have eaten it like 3 to 4 times this week already. I'm like, it is good tortellini, not as good as the first time, and the repetition is not something that I usually is my forte or what I look for when I'm eating, but it is my flavor of the week just purely on the amount that I've eaten it.
Nice.
So
Okay, I like that.
so then for my music, the nicer weather that we've had again has shifted my music kind of vibes and all, from the stuff I was listening to in the winter to stuff that a little more indie kind of boppy, like
Sunny day, open window vibes.
yeah, exactly. I like it's usually like the early spring when it's just getting nice, and then like early fall when it's still nice out and not too cold and everything.
Yeah.
Those times are I'm heavy in that music. But of course, I know you're going to bring it up, but when you showed me the video for the Heart Part 5 from Kendrick, that was awesome to go through, listen to. It just got me amped up for Friday's release. So so looking forward to that. But the summertime or like sunny day vibes are definitely back in full swing with my music tastes.
Nice. That's what's up.
And then the visual medium that I have for this week, it's anime that I just like randomly came across called Plunderer, which is interesting. It's got a pretty interesting plot setup and everything for the world. It's a typical like hero type like storyline and everything following along with that, and so it's like right up my alley in terms of like the shows that I typically watch for animes. So that's been cool. I've enjoyed it a bit. It's solid. It's probably not like my top 3, but it's a solid watch through so far. So I've been enjoying that this past week.
There you go.
So that is my flavor of the week.
Very cool. So my music is the same as yours. Bright, sunny day, open window vibes, and the new Kendrick single slaps. I'm pretty sure it's been his modus operandi for his other releases, where he puts out the heart, calls out a couple scenarios that he's not a fan of, and then we get the release a little bit later. So I'm super looking forward to that. I think the release is definitely on par with what we've heard before from him. So I really enjoy it. Really looking forward to it.
He looked like you could see kind of a little bit of a change in his like physique as well too.
He's older now.
Well,
last time we saw him was 5 years ago.
Yeah, but I was also thinking about like he looks a little like thinner to some extent. Like he's let the hair go a little bit more. It seemed like something that I feel like we've seen a little bit from some other artists that are similar kind of vein and age. We saw J. Cole go with growing the hair out and kind of like he's his attitude from young J. Cole to current J. Cole has definitely, and his vibe or persona, I guess, that we see at least has kind of aged. And I think we saw that with Kendrick a bit in that video too. It was interesting to see, and it's crazy to think that it was 5 years ago that we last really saw much from him.
Yeah, big time. I like the video using the like deep fake technology to have all of these individuals like rapping his words. I think that's like fascinating, and one of the most recent like artistic uses of that technology that I've seen. Pretty much everything else is just like, you know, like a TikTok video or a YouTube video. So I thought that was a pretty poignant use of it overall. But yeah, I really like that release. And my food here for the week, Sarah prepped up a lobster corn chowder, homemade, and it
Oh.
was banging, dude. Honestly, I was super impressed, and it was the best chowder I've ever had.
Chowders
And
are like my favorite soup. Like if I eat
so
any
good.
soup, it's typically clam chowder. Like oh, that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, it was banging. So looking forward to that hopefully being a staple on the menu when available. And
Nice.
then my visual medium for the week, one is a shout out, the other is ridiculous. Sarah turned on Suits to check it out. I don't know if there's like a new season coming up or whatever. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's about a bunch of lawyers. One of them claims to always win. The other one has a pot addiction. It's fucking crazy. Some of the writing is ridiculous. The character Lewis Litt is he literally looks like a man child. He's so crazy. His like mannerisms, his facial expressions. It's so wild. It's just another show that me and her can clown on basically. So I've tuned into some of the episodes and it's like it's fucking crazy. And then not crazy in a good way, crazy in a bad way. And then the shout out I want to say comedian Joe List, his new special just came out. It's called This Year's Material. It's on YouTube. Go watch it, stream it, share it, listen to it. I'm a massive Tuesday. I love Joe. I was there on the release night. It came out on Friday. He did like the instant premiere on YouTube. So him and the gang, they were in the chat. We watched it live with everybody. I feel like part of I feel part of a movement.
Nice.
So it is my responsibility to spread the good word. This year's material, Joe List on YouTube. Go watch it right the fuck now. That's my flavor of the week. And any other final words, Aaron?
No, I just want to remind everyone you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. We put episodes out weekly. We have Grand Prix race companions. Check out the F1 content, and if you want to watch along with those races and all, we always have a good time. I had a good time tonight, so thank you all for joining us.
Great episode this evening. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We really, truly appreciate it. It means the world to us. New episodes every Thursday. They release on Google, YouTube, Spotify. Come check us out. This has been another Tall and Short of It podcast. Thank you so much. Peace out.
Later.